Welcome to the first video of a series in which we're going to be developing a very large project. And as you can probably guess by the name, it is called the streetlight system. Therefore, we're going to be developing a control system which is going to automate the lighting, or essentially an intersection of a system. So simple to understand to every one of us. Therefore, it makes it a very cool system to work with. That way, I don't need to explain all the details and intricacies of what I'm doing. Before we get started with today's video, we just wanted to quickly point out all the great content we've been releasing on the Solus PLC YouTube channel. And this includes industrial automation, PLC programming, as well as HMI development. And if you enjoy this type of content, we would really appreciate it if you could click the subscribe button as well as the notification bell in order to receive the latest and greatest content we will be posting to the channel. That being said, to follow along, there's going to be a link posted in the description in order for you to get the latest files so that you can be up to speed with the lectures and you can go back and essentially understand what was done. A couple of different items before we begin. As you can see, we are running version 30.11 by the top description up here of a Studio 5000 Logix designer. We're also running this live on a 1769-L24ER-QB1B processor. You can of course use any other type of processor. This is not going to be specific to Allen Bradley even, so you can replicate this same project on any other processor of your choosing. That being said, let's start working on the technical setup. So in my projects folder, you will notice that I have the streetlight system routine, as I've mentioned, and then we have a main. So within our main, all we're going to do is jump to different subroutines, and we're going to start creating them now. So I'm going to right click this start light system. I'm going to hit add new routine, and here I'm going to give it a name. One thing I wanted to briefly essentially explain is why do I give this _02. So I want to keep my routines organized, and it doesn't allow you to have a essentially a number as the front. So if you click it, if you click OK, it's going to tell you that it's failed to create, the name is invalid. So you use essentially the underscore method to bypass that restriction. And we're going to call that light system. Ladder logic, we're going to primarily be focused on ladder diagrams, but we will dive into some of the other different languages further on in the tutorial. It's going to be created under streetlight system. Hit OK. And a new routine is going to appear here. Of course, we need to initialize that routine, and in order to do so, we're going to just click any random instruction that you want. You're going to double click the instruction. Once double clicked, you will notice that it will bring up the name of the instruction, and here we're going to use a jump to subroutine. So type in JSR, press enter, and in the routine name you're going to have to enter the _02 light system. It clips it a little bit because I'm zoomed in so that you can see a little bit better, but _02 light system. And what you do with the input parameters, since we have none at this point, you just double click them and then click away, and they should remove themselves. So here we have the light system subroutine, and it's going to go from the main into the routine in which we're going to build our program. Double clicking the light system brings us that routine in the window, and we can start programming. So let's briefly discuss what we're going to do in this first video, and essentially it's going to be creating the two lights. So think of a two-way intersection. There's going to be multiple outputs physically, but internally you're essentially on a single intersection. It's going to show the same light. So for example, if you're coming from the north or you're coming from the south, there's going to be a green light. If you're coming from the west or east, there's also going to be a green light, but there's going to be three lights on each side essentially. So let's start off with this, and those are going to be outputs. So we're going to be calling them, first we're going to just give them very specific names, and then we're going to discuss why we'd want to change that. So light 1 _ green, and I'm going to just Control A in order to, actually I'm going to double click that to select and copy that in so I can very easily replicate that. So light 1 is going to have a green light, a yellow light, as well as a red light. I'm just going to right click and do a paste. I'm going to Control C the entire instruction and then paste that in. Light 1 is going to have an orange. Actually, let's make it's a yellow. And then last but not least, we have a red. So this gives you practice on some fundamental logic, but we are going to expand a lot on this project. I'm going to select, so when you select the rungs, you can hold the control key. And if you hold the control key and keep selecting, as you can see, I've selected multiple rungs at once. And then I'm going to control C in order to copy those rungs, control V to paste them in. And this is going to be our light 2. Light 2. And so now we essentially have 6 distinct outputs for those lights. We need to right click the description and we need to create all of them. So these are going to be booleans which are going to reside at the PLC level. I'm going to hit yes, new light, yes. And that's how we create our tags. There we go. So we have 6 Boolean tags which describe the different states. And now we need to figure out what is the next functionality. Well, light 1 essentially needs to go from green to yellow to red. And right now, if I just compile this program, it's all going to be just effectively energized and it's not going to be very functional. So we need to figure out essentially the light starts on in green, then it transfers to yellow, then it goes to red. So there's absolutely no way for it to just stay all 3 of those at the same time. So we need to have some kind of a timer system which is going to transition that between the different states. So let's look at that. Let's look at how that's going to work. So for example, the light is going to start off in green, and after a certain period of time, the light needs to transition to yellow. So of course, that is done by a timer. So let's think of this as a T on. So there's going to be a timer, and let's call it the same as we called this, and we're going to add a T at the end in order to make it a timer-based tag. And we're going to create a new timer. So this is going to be base. Once again, it's going to go back to the PLC. So if the light is green and the T on delay is completed, here we're going to put 5 seconds. Accumulated is going to be 0. It needs to become yellow. So let's see here. Done. So once the timer is done, what I did here is essentially select the rung. I added an XIC instruction, examine on, once the timer is done. So this is a bit which we've learned about in the timer section. And if you want to go look at all of them, you can monitor the timer. As you can see, it's at the bottom here. And if you click this little plus sign, you will see all of the tags which are associated with that timer. And we're using this particular done bit. Let's go back in here. Once the timer is done, we are turning on the yellow. And here, once again, we need to have a timer which is going to transition from yellow to red. Light 1, and this is going to be yellow. We need to create this timer, of course. New timer. This is going to be timer PLC box. Okay. And in this case, it's only going to be 1 second. So after 1 second of yellow, it is going to transition into red. Now, this is going to be not the final version, and of course, it's not going to work, and I will show you exactly the reason why. Well, it starts off as green as we would expect. After 5 seconds is going to turn on the yellow, and after 1 second it turned on the red. That being said, we of course don't want the green, yellow, and red to stay on at the same time. So we're going to re-edit this code once again. So once I'm online with the PLC, I need to double click those rungs in order to make them editable. And first thing that I want to capitalize on is that we're going to create these neater branches. I don't like to have outputs essentially one after the other, and it makes it a little bit more easier to read when you have the branches positioned this way. So we're going to just edit that a little bit. And so now we need to essentially turn off certain things once they are no longer needed. So once this timer is done, this green light needs to come off. So of course, now it should be off because the timer has been completed. And secondary, once this timer has been completed and this timer essentially is also completed, this needs to come off as well. So the light needs to be completed. Let's see here. So not done, the yellow can be on. Let's see if that works. Let's re-download the program and make sure everything's okay. So as you can see, the only light in the first array is going to be the red one. Now we want to reset the system, and let's go insert a rung at the top here, and this is going to be a system reset. Let's do it like light 1 reset, light 1 reset, and that's going to reset our timer. So reset instruction, just double click and type in RES, and here you can put in essentially the timers that we're using. And we should be able to just reset one of them because all the other ones are going to unlatch because of that action. Let's see here. Let's download our code, make sure everything's okay. So here I'm just going to use, I can right click this and I can use toggle bit, or I can just press Control T on my keyboard, which is a bit more convenient for me. So I'm going to toggle this and then I'm going to release it. And as you can see, the timer has begun counting. We have the green light on. Once we get to 5,000, we have the yellow light. And of course, let's change this a little bit. So first of all, let's make this, let's say 10 seconds. So this is in milliseconds. Therefore, you need to multiply by 1,000. And this, let's go and set it to 3 seconds. So the yellow is going to appear for 3 seconds, and then the red is going to come on. So let's reset that once again. So as you can see, we're displaying a green light, so the cars can transfer through that light, and it's showing green. Everything is good. Everything is running as expected. At 10 seconds, we display this yellow. After 3 seconds, it goes back to red. So very simple system. I'm going to reapply this to light 2. You don't necessarily need to watch me on video, but it's going to be the same exact reapplication of code. Very simple yet effective system for this particular use case.